Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest, Calin Balea. He's coming to us from Western Romania, and he's got a really interesting ideas around digital product, brand design. We're going to talk about your digital identity, brand identity, how to design better digital products, product market fit, all these interesting ideas around running a digital business. So, Calin, welcome.
Hey, thank you for inviting me and happy to be here.
Yeah, I know we connected through the Podmatch community. So tell people about your background, your work and what you do.
Sure. So I have been a designer for about 10 years now. I'm self-taught. I studied finance in college, and then I made the transition like straight out of college. The first real job I got was in design, and it sort of went on from there. I never worked a day in my life in a bank or in a financial institution, but it was interesting to. It was an interesting subject to study. So yeah, after finding my first job at a local advertising agency in my hometown, not where I currently live in Bucharest, which is the capital city. I am originally from a city called Timișoara, which is somewhere in Western Romania, close to the border with Hungary. Over the last 6 years or so, I've been working remotely for clients from the US and mostly the US and Western Europe. And recently I started my own studio, trying to help more startup find product market fit and avoid a lot of newbie mistakes that a lot of startups are making when they have an idea. Founders are excited about something that they want to build. They think that it's just a matter of finding some developers to code their idea and that's it. But usually it's a longer story than that. So through my studio, I try to cover all their design needs from brand design all the way to final UI design and working with developers to get their ideas implemented properly.
Yeah.
That's like a quick overview.
Yeah, I love this idea. You've never worked a day in your life, and it sounds like those people that say that are either they're pursuing their passions like Warren Buffett, or they're designing or entrepreneurs. And then it's interesting. I was at this conference and this guy was wearing this shirt. He was a multi-millionaire business, and he has a shirt saying "successfully unemployed," which is
Yeah.
interesting. So talk about idea of how important is brand identity? What is it? How do you develop it? How do you create it in your digital products? All of that.
Okay. So with brand identity, things are much more subjective than with product design. Because with product design, you need to fix a problem for the user. The user will give you feedback, and it's all much more objective. You can measure how the user is interacting with your product, so you can see if it's working or not. With brand design, it's a bit more subjective because, in essence, brand identity is, or what a brand is collective perception of your audience or people that interact with your company. So or there's another saying that branding is what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. It's much more subjective, but there are ways that you can influence what people think about you by the way you present yourself, by the way you speak. It's very similar. It's a common term that's thrown around a lot lately. Personal branding. It's sort of the same thing. What people think about your company is essentially brand identity. And with brand identity design, you can try to influence that, tailoring the way your company looks and speaks to what your audience would appreciate. And there needs to be a balance between who you are and what you want to say, and what acceptable or interesting to your audience. So that's not an easy balance to strike. That is what everyone should strive for, because if you veer too far towards worrying about what people say about you and just trying to please everyone, just trying to find a gray area where everyone is not bothered by you in any way, then you become unnoticeable, you become bland. And as a company, you want to stand out in some way. So with brand design, you need to have a bit of courage and have the courage to express your personality as a company. I think that long-winded explanation maybe answered your question about what is brand identity.
One thing I've noticed among thought leaders, influencers, is there's this one idea is I think the mantra is they say niche down and the riches are in the niches. But then I've also seen, so basically these brands, like they're very narrow, they go very deep, very successful. But then I also see other brands, they go wide and shallow, and they get, they kind of and then the brands stand out. So what is better, this deep and shallow or wide and narrow? Because I've seen models where wide and narrow works as well. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that has more to do with product strategy rather than brand strategy. So the brand is the same, is the company ethos, who you are as a company, and how you present yourself. In terms of product strategy and product design, you have those two approaches, and I think it depends on the market. Usually the winning recipe is going to niching down and going deep and building a community and really serve customers excellent. And then you can branch out into other verticals. Popular example is Amazon. Amazon started not by selling anything and everything. They started selling books. And when that worked, then they applied the same model, the same system for selling for other things. And then they played around and built AWS, and then they started selling that when people wanted to get to move their apps to their cloud, and that became a different model. Or they expanded, and then they started a streaming service. So at first you need to focus. You have laser focus on a specific niche and win big there, and then you can expand. But it's essentially, when you're going broad, I think the end result of multiple niches put together side by side, that's when you become or have a broad approach, is multiple niches actually all side by side. If you try to go very broad, then you are probably going to have a subpar solution that no one really is crazy about. Like if the need is there, if you're satisfying a burning need for your customer and you don't have a lot of competition, then that might work, but only for a while, because anything in capitalism, if there is a need, suppliers are going to come in and fill that need to make an income. So maybe it works in the beginning, but if you're in the business for any amount of time, then sooner or later competitors will come in, and not only they will start competing with you for the same market, but they will already have all the knowledge of the mistakes that you've made. So as a first mover, as they call it, it's also an advantage because you can occupy a market, but you also need to be aware that you are a trailblazer, that people are going to look at you and accelerate their growth because they're not making the same mistakes that you have, or opening or working to open all the doors or pave the road that you have paved already. It's usually for 99% of companies, I think the best approach is to pick a niche and try to provide the best service possible or the best solution possible.
I love that. And so what's interesting is that, a really great question. And, it also brings to mind Amazon. They started with the retails, and then now they're mostly they're a cloud-based business now. That's where most of their revenue comes from. And so one thing is talking about is measuring product market fit. How do you measure that?
Well, there is no cookie cutter solution for measuring product market fit. I think it was the folks at Slack that came up with this metric at first. I might be mistaken, but I think it was the company that developed Slack, and they would survey their customers on a regular basis via what they call an NPS. It's a Net Promoter Score. It's a popular survey where you can say, the question was, well, actually NPS asks you if you would recommend this tool to someone else. I think their question was, would you be disappointed if you would no longer be able to use Slack or something like this? And they found that when a percentage of people that would respond that they would be disappointed is at least 40%, then that is where past that point, you can assume you have good product market fit. You have a good enough product that people actually care about. Below that, well, like I said, it depends, and that's not if it's 39% or 41%, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but that's the ballpark number that people are looking at.
The other question I had is how to decide what features to build and avoid scope creep.
I think that comes down to user feedback, especially with startups. You need to listen to your customers early on, interview them often. They will tell you what matters to them. I think scope creep happens when companies try to or lose sight of what really matters, or they get enamored with some cool feature idea and they want to build that, and they don't have validation that that feature is really useful, or at least not as desired as other features. Keeping your ear to the ground and talking to your users regularly, you can gauge the desirability of a certain feature, and then you can weigh that user request with technically difficult it is to implement or how costly, and then you can make a decision how you prioritize your road. It all comes down to user feedback, listening to your customers, which is easier said than done. Most startups struggle to get quality feedback from customers, partly because, especially in the tech world, though tech companies are usually started for the most part by techies, by developers or designers, people in tech like PMs, and they just like building stuff, and they're in their den at home or whatever, and they're just coding away or building and designing and so on. But actually, in the early days, getting that quality user feedback forces you to get out of the house or the office and go talk to people and meet them in person if possible. Start doing sales, actually. I think the best way to validate that an idea is worth pursuing in the beginning, just putting together a landing page, sharing that with who you think would be interested in your solution, and seeing if they take some sort of action. They subscribe to get a notification, or even better, if they pay some sort of, early access fee, then that's even better. In the end, that's what matters. Or that's the ultimate proof that you found product market fit, is when people are paying you. You can look at all kinds of other metrics, but in the end, what matters is, are people paying for your solution? You might even get interesting or positive feedback, but if they're not paying, then you don't have a business. There's no product market fit. There's maybe some product audience fit, but you don't have a business there.
Yeah, I like that. I like this idea. And then this idea of I think it was one of the masters of scale. He was talking about in the early days, you have to do things that don't scale to figure out ways and systems and processes to actually help the business scale. Like in the early days of Airbnb, they had Joe Gebbia and Chesky. They had to fly up to New York City to talk to homeowners, talk about what people liked, and basically one of the homeowners gave him just like notes of info, like what hosts wanted and looking and guess, and that really helped them. And then they incorporated it to their software. But really interesting. As we kind of go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, to your point, I think that was so, or at least that's where I heard it from. It's on YouTube. If you search for Michael Siebel, he is from YC, I think not the president, but a partner at YC. And he was telling this story that Brian Chesky went out, I think with his partner or whatever, to take professional and with a professional photographer to take good photos of locations. And a homeowner that was using their website invited them for coffee afterwards.
Yeah.
And because they actually cared about their audience, otherwise they would just say, I have a bunch of other homes to hit today. We have a bunch of photos to take. We don't have time for coffee. Thank you. But he took the time because he really cared about his customers and his users. A few minutes into the conversation, this person told them that, hey, I have essentially this journal of all of my story renting out this place, trying out different apps, trying your app, and writing down feedback, etc. So it was like a gold mine of user feedback, and they would have never gotten their hands on such valuable feedback if they wouldn't have left the office or just send a photographer and not really care. So caring about your audience and the problem that you want to solve helps you or incentivizes maybe move out of your comfort zone to solve a problem. And that's when you can actually get super valuable feedback, because you can interview all kinds of people. Maybe you can get a bunch of people, especially if you're paying people to do an interview with you, and they will give you very, very shallow feedback, or not feedback that is going to be eye-opening for you. Caring definitely matters, and going out of your comfort zone to talk to users in person, in the field, that makes the difference.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm always, whenever customers give me feedback, I'm always seeing where it's kind of, you want information. That's like information from the field, and helps you get better, new ideas. So, feedback is always one. How do people follow you, check out your website, check out your work, check out Contrast Studio, and reach out to you?
Sure. So the website is contrast.studio, so really easy. And I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. I am still working to set up online presence across social media for the studio. That's not a top priority right now, but I'm active on LinkedIn and posting there pretty regularly. So happy to connect with anyone there. Follow the page or just add me, search for my name, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. And happy to chat or help anyone in any way I can.
Yeah. And with all that, let's thank Calin for coming on. Really interesting conversation. It's very important, this idea of brand identity and product market fit. And all of Calin's resources will be in the links and show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.